All right, hello everyone again. My name is Scott, and today in this video, I want to talk about how I colored this Arthur Adams drawing for something called hashtag Colorist Jam. If you don't know what that is, I'll let you know in a second. So yeah, there's this pretty cool comic book colorist community thing called hashtag Colorist Jam, where a bunch of people were taking this drawing of Colossus and coloring it. There was mine. Yeah, it was a pretty cool thing done by this guy named Rico at Who Is Rico on Twitter. And we started with this. He put this file up online himself. This is the original line art. This was the flat color layer that was already included, so we didn't have to create that ourselves. And this right here is my first attempt, and this is my second attempt. So what I want to kind of do is just show you what I did at first and then why I changed it. First of all, a couple things about this. I just think this was a really fun thing to do. I would definitely be for more things like this in the community moving forward. You can definitely take, hashtag trends like this and expand them and get more people involved, and not just colorists, but anybody who just likes comic book art or whatnot, and just do it just for fun or for serious practice. Either way, I definitely think this is a good positive thing for the community, so that not only just so people can have fun with art, but also so that maybe people who are into this sort of thing, like coloring comic book line art, that maybe we can help find each other online and maybe just have more of a presence in the community, and more colorists can find each other that way. Okay, so now I want to look at what I did at first. Overall, I think it's kind of cool, but there's a few things that I definitely wanted to change about it. First of all, right away, what I like about it is I did manage to get some reflected light going. You see there's some purple going in here. And the idea of that is I wanted the lighting to be coming from this side. Like it's coming kind of from the front and from the left there. So I wanted this area here to be more in light, and this area here to be more in shadow. And in the shadows, you would have some of the lighting from like the atmosphere, like kind of going in here. Let me make it so that you can see this a little better. So you can have like some reflected cool tones inside the shadows here. And it just kind of makes it a lot cooler looking. And then also in the light here, you see like it's kind of shifting towards kind of an orange tint. Because a lot of times red superheroes, it can be kind of confusing how to light the shadow and highlight areas on red superheroes, is that the mistake can be to just make it go whiter and just go to pink, and that can actually not be great. Let me demonstrate. Like if I just take a red tone here and just go to screen and just go on top of it, and it just makes it lighter and lighter and lighter, it just kind of goes straight from pink to white, which isn't really necessarily the way you want to do it. If you instead just took like a more of an orange tint, just kind of shifted it more towards orange, that can actually be a little more of an interesting color up against red. So I tried to go with that. And yeah, overall, I thought it looked cool. But here's the thing, like it's a little bit flat. Like I'm not really getting a strong sense of the three-dimensionality of the muscle structures here. I wasn't super happy with how that turned out. It just wasn't super impressive. This was a little wonky. I don't think I really caught, like here I started off kind of catching the ambient occlusion shadow there against the collarbone, and I kind of got away from it here because I think I was just kind of moving a little bit quickly. So I revisited this today, and I think this is a big improvement. And first thing you'll notice is I went with a lot more of a painterly style on this. I used this brush here, Tool Presets, which is the K&Kale brush from the Keenan Lafferty, and I just kind of built up the structure here. I tried to make sure that I got some of the form shadows going so you can see a little more detail. I wanted to make sure that I got some of these dark lines in between the muscles here. get those form shadows in there. So you got a much more sense of three-dimensionality to the muscles. You know, like seeing the dark areas here in between the fingers, really get a sense of that. Because the thing is, the light areas don't really pop forward unless you have the dark areas around them kind of receding them back. Clean that up a bit, and I kind of gave it a little bit of a brush strokiness from left to right to try to get an idea of his clothes wrinkling a bit, like the line art here was kind of indicating that he was doing so. Kind of went with that. I think that looks a lot better. Try to put a little bit of painterly detail in here, like even though this wristband here is in shadow, it would still have at least some detail in there. It's like over here I didn't put a whole lot. This is the old one. Again, you know, this is a lot more flat. And over here, in the new version, again, I think it has a lot more three-dimensionality to it. Also, I wanted to make sure that I had a good, strong sense of like, you know, this area here being in shadow, a little bit of shadow here, a little bit of shadow here, just to make sure that I kind of really pushed the believability of things moving forward and moving back. I added a little bit of details. You see here, just a little bit of light on whatever this concrete or stone or whatever it is that he's standing on. There's wood planks back here. I wanted to add a little bit of detail, but not too much. You know, I wanted people to be looking up here. I saw some other people did some really cool things with their versions, and just like blowing out super cool lighting effects in the background. I just wanted a little bit of that. You know, you see a little bit of this like peach color here reflecting up in the shadows, again getting more reflected light going, but I didn't want to go too far with it. And again, you see here, this whole area is kind of in shadow because, again, I wanted you to believe the lighting was coming from here and that this area was receding more so it didn't look too flat. But you still want to have some reflected light coming in here so that it doesn't look completely flat. Okay, so that's about it. It's a quick video today. I just wanted to show you what I did and how I thought I improved this piece and my rationale a little bit today. If this video was helpful for you at all, please let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one. Thanks a lot. Hello everyone, this is Scott. Welcome to my channel. Today I just want to do a quick video just showing you a tour of what I have done in my sketchbook over the last year. Okay, so before I get started, basic premise is I've worked almost exclusively digitally for the past, I think, like 6 years or so. And then just this year in 2020, basically right when the lockdown happened, I ended up getting this Strathmore sketchbook and some pencils and just started doing like traditional drawing again. I was going through the Proco.com stuff on YouTube, the free drawing courses on there, which in my opinion are probably the best resource to learn how to draw on the internet. So I started to get inspired to just work on my fundamentals like I hadn't done in a long time, just learning how to draw, learning how to shade, just doing like figure drawing and gesture drawing and stuff like that, which I never really did a whole heck of a lot of. My art fundamentals were, I don't know, things that I just kind of put off over time. So I wanted to maybe just take some time over this year to just sort of dive into those sort of things and maybe fill in some weaknesses in my, my artistic understanding. So yeah, going back to the spring, I just recorded this earlier today and I'm just watching it with you here. Yeah, just doing some of these basic, exercises, just drawing lines on the paper, just getting used to it again. Shading spheres, simple exercises. I think these are okay for, if you're just getting back into it, or if you're a beginner or whatnot, trying to control your feeling of the pencil. It's definitely way, way, way easier for me to control a pencil physically as opposed to working on a Wacom tablet. obviously so many conveniences about working digitally. That's definitely how I prefer to work. But in general, yeah, it's one thing that I really do miss about working traditionally is it's just so much easier for me to control where my line's going. And this is just three-dimensional shapes, just getting myself practiced again. And here I started working on the eyes. I started working on the facial features. My mindset was to just try to just draw as much as I could. And again, I was watching those Proko YouTube videos a lot. I'll put a link in the description below if you're not familiar with Proko. I just figured, start with the eyes, go to the other facial features and just try to really practice understanding what I'm drawing and not just drawing it, because I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that we have a tendency to make as artists, is to just, instead of really understanding what we're creating, we're just trying to create it and see what happens. But I wanted to really understand, watching these videos, trying to learn about, what's this part of the eye called, and this, that, and the other thing, and trying to, not just draw it, but, try to understand this moves here and this goes here and this does this, and it has a tendency to go in here and come out here and then move here and that sort of thing. Things that you might not always think of. Moving on to the next page eventually. Noses, again, just not only to understand the different parts of them, but also trying to get the three-dimensionality of the form right. The light would hit up here and then create a shadow down under here. So it's a drawing practice, and it's an understanding of my anatomy as well. Ears, mouth. Ears are definitely one of the more complicated things to learn. You just kind of have to memorize it. Just memorize how these shapes go. How there's this space in here and the space in here, this line here, and it goes even further deep in here, and you've got this thing in here. Things like that, you're never gonna know it until you have to work on it and just memorize it to get to the point where you might actually be able to draw it yourself, from memory, without having to have an ear right in front of your face, or just take a mirror on yourself, that sort of thing. Mouth, obviously trying to and I was working from references. I wasn't just doing this off the top of my head. I would put something on my phone and just sit my phone on the sketchbook and just put something on it and set my phone so that it would stay on for a good 10 minutes without hitting anything. Yeah, I thought these came out all right. Felt like I was getting a good understanding of light and shadow as well. Here with these, I really like these two. I thought these were hair studies. Some more ears. Some more hair studies. I thought these came out all right. I started doing Loomis heads here. It's a method to try to teach yourself where the facial features go. Doing some more Loomis heads here. And here I was doing simplified three-dimensional primitive forms of animals, primitive duck and little teddy bear here and this parrot here. But yeah, the primary thing is to understand that these animals, just like anything else, can be broken down into simple primitives. This is a sphere, this is a cylinder, this is another cylinder. Cylinder here, cylinder, sphere, got a cube here, another cylinder, sphere. This is kind of a sphere, and this is kind of a cylinder that just kind of tapers in there. And this, that can tell you how to shade it. And here, these were gesture drawings. These were robo beans. I was trying to, learn the way these forms would bend and twist with different types of motion. Here, these were mannequinizations, taking figure models and turning them into simple primitives, again, just like with those animals in the other example. Just, shoulders can be a sphere, and arms are cylinders, and so on and so forth. I definitely feel like these things are very helpful. When I work on these type of things, I feel like I'm not just, drawing something to, get someone to view my art station or whatever, but I'm really, diving into my understanding of art. All right, now here, this is my first full figure drawing I had an image of the model on my phone again, and I was just drawing from the reference. Overall, I think it turned out pretty well. I was pretty satisfied with it, especially like these areas around the neck, the shoulder, and the arm. I thought this turned out fairly realistically here in the core here. Definitely the one major issue is the legs are too long. This is just me. One thing about figure drawing is it's easier to critique yourself than with other types of art. I can easily look at this and be like, yeah, the way the glute meets the thigh here, it's way too long. And this area here is not quite right, the way it kind of comes in here. Like this area specifically, and then these legs are just a little too long overall. I'd say for your first figure drawing, I'd say that's pretty good. Yeah, try not to be too hard on yourself. Everybody's got to start somewhere. You don't want to compare your beginning to someone else's middle or end to your own artistic journey. You know, just take it step at a time and just keep working at it, and you'll just find that you'll get a little bit better each time you do it. Yeah, and here I was practicing spinal cords and rib cages and just the movement specifically, and trying to imagine. Let me hold on a second here. Trying to imagine like the way if you saw a human, like a figure model, moving in a certain direction, what would their spine actually look like underneath them? What would their rib cage look like? Because you don't always stop and think, you know, you're seeing the outside of somebody. It's just like right here, you know, you're seeing me. You're not necessarily thinking of the skull underneath. You know, when someone moves, you're not necessarily thinking of the way their rib cage and their spinal cord might look underneath it. But if you have a better understanding of what's underneath, what's actually going on, and the way, you know, the human body inside actually can move, and you understand the limitations, it can help to stop you from drawing somebody in an unrealistic position and to do something that the human body doesn't actually do. Not only that, but it can also help you to understand how to make things more interesting as well. And to, you know, when you're doing these exercises, you have a tendency to try to find, you know, interesting motions, and to maybe even when you're drawing it, maybe try to exaggerate the more interesting lines and contours. And I kept doing that up here, and down here, I started doing pelvis drawings, which was super difficult. Definitely one of my least favorite parts of the process that I was going through with all these practice sketches, because the pelvis is very complicated. You know, there's so many different things to get right, and obviously these were simplified three-dimensional forms. This isn't exactly how a pelvis looks. But yeah, very difficult, but very a good challenge to have. It definitely, even if I don't, you know, end up becoming some professional pelvic drawer sort of thing, you know, it's still, you're teaching yourself how to understand what you're seeing and how to interpret it in your art, how to simplify things into three-dimensional forms. One of the things you're trying to do when you're learning these exercises, you're trying to understand just how far down this section goes, just how far this section curves out here, how, you know, this is aligned to this, just how far back this area would be from here to here, just how tall should this be, just how wide should it be, and all those things you're having to think about. You know, as you can see here, I had, you know, some basic shapes outlined, and I just kind of gradually erased it. Overall, I had like a line here and a line here. And here I'm just trying to do more rib cages and get more of an understanding of the three-dimensionality of it, more specifically. Some more movements here is trying to do, you know, the loomis head and the spinal cord and the rib cage and the pelvis all connected, trying to get an idea of, you know, how the spinal cord would look in this position, this sort of thing. Here I started going on to collarbones and shoulder blades, trying to understand their relationship to each other. Again, just trying to understand the human body as much as I can. And this is the last page. This is simplified versions of human joints. Your wrist, your fingers, your shoulders, everywhere else, and different types of joints. simplifying them into three-dimensional forms, that sort of thing. And that's it. Yeah, I'd say overall, the primary focus through most of these sketches was to try to understand what I'm seeing and how to communicate it through my drawings, because anyone who really understands something is going to be able to look at your art and they're going to be able to tell whether or not you understood it yourself. If they really understand the human form really well, they're going to be able to look at your work and see whether or not you understand it yourself. A lot of times art is kind of tricky like that. Like, you can see something looks absolutely amazing and you don't even really know why. It just looks great to you. And a lot of that is just because there's just very subtle details in the accuracy of something. And they might even be exaggerated details, but whoever made it really understood what they were making. They understood the way the lighting would work. They understood the anatomy. The perspective is accurate, the form. All right, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. This was a quick one. I just wanted to kind of go through my sketchbook and just kind of share my process. I hope this was helpful for you. Let me know in the comments if it was. So again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Alright, hello everyone, my name is Scott Honeycutt, and today this is my first 3D video on YouTube. And in my first 3D video, I think I'm gonna just go over my thoughts on ZBrush, because I've been learning it over the course of the last year, for about a few months or so here and there. Between doing other things, I've been trying to get acquainted with it, and it's absolutely one of the most unique programs you're ever gonna dive into. It's definitely one of the biggest complaints is that it's one of the clunkiest interfaces and user experiences you're going to get into. But then at the same time, it's also easily by far the most powerful sculpting tool that there is. And since the entire 3D industry is essentially based around using ZBrush, you know, there's 3D Coat, there's Mudbox is technically still around. And Blender is definitely picking up steam, but the vast majority of the industry is definitely using ZBrush, and that's the primary reason why I eventually broke down, bought it, and have decided to stick with using ZBrush for the time being. Now, at the time of this video, this is January 8th, 2022. The Maxon buyout has just recently happened, so unfortunately, I'm not expecting the free updates over the years as ZBrush users have had. This is a perpetual license that I've just recently started using. But either way, for the next foreseeable future, I'm going to be using this program, and it's definitely going to be in my advantage that I get used to it and start to enjoy it. And at first it was definitely a mixed bag. It was definitely a clunky experience. I'm definitely wondering, you know, why does... The first thing you notice when you're in ZBrush for the first time is, okay, why does it work so weirdly? Why does it... You just notice like sliding along the menus on the left and right side that it moves very quickly and it's very uncomfortable. It just feels very non-intuitive, as you can see on the left and right side of the screen. Especially on the right, there's just so many sans serif plain white text buttons up against each other, and without icons next to them, it's just very hard for you to see what you're looking for. You can very easily scroll and scroll and scroll on the right side of the screen and have a hard time just looking for the tool you're looking for. Other things are just, you know, the menus at the top are in alphabetical order, so, you know, the file, it goes, you know, alpha, brush, color, document, draw, dynamics, edit, and then the file menu, which you're used to being all the way over on the left, is kind of in the middle there. There's just a lot of things like, you know, why can't I just select an object and just hit the delete key and then just delete it? Well, you can't. You've got to select it, you've got to hide it, and then you have to go, you have to hit a button that says delete hidden. There's just a lot of different things you got to get used to in this program, and once you start to get used to it, like anything else, it will start to grow on you. You can get past that, and you can start to recognize, okay, there are a lot of good tools in this program, and eventually it's like, okay, yeah, I'm starting to get the hang of it. But then the biggest problem with ZBrush hits you, and that is that it crashes. It crashes a lot. It crashes right at the worst possible moment, and which is, I guess, anytime that something crashes, it's not a good thing. But things like, say for example, using the knife tool, it seems like almost every time I use it, it crashes on me. I'm not sure if that's everyone's experience or just mine, but I'm just getting that crash like crazy on me, and I'm learning to hit the quick save button at the top of the screen quite a bit. I'm not always sure just how much better it really is than other programs, meaning most of these tools, like, you're surrounded by tools in this program, and most of them you think, do I really need it? Like, do I really need every single one of these buttons? Or is it actually just making it harder to navigate? It's just making it less fun to work with, that I just have all these options to deal with. But again, definitely there are definitely a number of key features that people in professional workflows will definitely tell you, like, you definitely want to have these options here. Some of the best things that it has are the Z plugins, like the UV Master and the multi-map export, the decimation master, which gives you a much better result than the decimate modifier in Blender. Blender does not have layers in its sculpting program, part of the program I should say. Blender is definitely coming along as a sculptor, and if you're just starting off, then it's a perfect way to get started. But on a professional level, I can definitely see why there are a number of reasons why it's still not really up there as a full replacement for ZBrush. Now, I started sculpting with Mudbox. It was probably 2010, 2011, 2012. I was still using Autodesk student licenses at the time. I was, in and out of school. I was in school from 2005 to 2008 for an associate's, and then 2010 to 2013 for a bachelor's. And those student licenses were from Autodesk were good for 3 years. So I was learning how to sculpt with Mudbox, and I never really dove in. So this is really me sculpting seriously for the first time. I've always been more of a hard surface modeler. I've always focused more on things that are kind of hard-edged and man-made, but I always kind of knew that I had this kind of weakness in my arsenal that, if I could, if I was very comfortable just moving into sculpting, that, this, whatever it is that I'm making right now, it'd be a little bit of an easier task for me. And I've oftentimes polymodeled things the hard way because of not having something like ZBrush at my disposal. So this is definitely something that I need to get over and something that I'm excited to dive into. But speaking of Mudbox, I definitely miss it. It's definitely kind of sad to me that it's like practically abandonware at this point in time. It's still there. Now that Maxon's bought out ZBrush, people are starting to bring it up again and say it's a cheaper alternative. There's also 3D Coat, by the way. I've never worked with 3D Coat, but I've heard you can sculpt in that as well, so you can check that out if you're interested. But Mudbox was definitely intuitive, simple, and easy to use, and it does have a layer-based system, unlike Blender. It was very easy to pick up, and I remember actually feeling bad, like, is there more to learn in this program? Because when you first dive in, it's like, it's really simple and easy to figure out. And unlike ZBrush, with this sort of bizarre 2.5D system where you have to draw your model out and then go into edit mode before you're actually sculpting on it for real, it's pick up and you just start working with it. It's easy to use. But with ZBrush, there are a lot of simple advantages. Like, a lot of the sculpting just works great. Even this matte cap, like this brown matte cap that I like working with, if you compare it to the one in Blender, the Blender one looks kind of oily in comparison. Now, I know I definitely agree that the user experience is clunky. I will say that this interface, I do like the way it looks. That's kind of a subjective preference. Just the dark gray with the orange highlights. I do like this look. My first experience with ZBrush was actually, it would have been 06-ish, somewhere around 2006. There was a free version of ZBrush 2, I believe, and I just remember opening up for the first time and just thinking, this is the coolest program I have ever been into. And I had no idea what I was doing. I think I was just doing the 2.5D stuff and just messing around with it and had no idea. I was just making abstract shapes. I remember following an automated tutorial that it had. I had no idea what all these things in the left and right of the interface were. It was bizarre, but I loved it. I just remember just having this feeling like that this was what I wanted to do. I was just so excited about 3D graphics at the time. I didn't really care if it was difficult or if it was intuitive or anything like that at the time. Nowadays, I've used software as much as I have, so I'm a lot more sensitive to to the way things work. And that's really the hardest thing about ZBrush, is that it just works differently than everything else that you're used to using if you're used to working in other 3D programs. And you're just gonna have to get used to that. And the crashes are the worst thing. Now, and then you also have to think about the fact that I know it's a cliche term, but it's the industry standard, as they say, which is really the primary reason why I broke down and just decided to buy it and stick with it, was because, again, everyone's using it. And that's more than just, trying to get into a studio, because for me, I'm not really worried about that right now. But maybe not all, but the vast majority of sculpting content out there is focused around ZBrush. The vast majority of the YouTube videos you'll find, the courses you can pay for, the brushes that are out there that you can just import, you can purchase for reasonable prices, are for ZBrush. And whereas an alpha, anybody can make an alpha and you can place it in here, but the brushes are program specific. So they're actually ZBrush brushes specifically out there. And you just put it in, and some of these brushes are like magic. I've got just a few at this point, but I have some stone and rock brushes. I have a few wood brushes which work absolutely like magic. It's like you turn it on and you start sculpting a little bit, and then hey, what do you know, it looks like wood already. And that's kind of what the advantage is to having the industry standard tool here, because a lot of that work can be done for you because it's been done by a lot of other people over time. So it's just going to make things faster for you. Like if I can open up YouTube and just start watching other people's videos and just take in like what brushes are they using by name and what settings are they using. It's definitely not the be end all, but it'll definitely get you started faster. It'll get you on a fast track to success a lot faster than other things will. So there's definitely that to consider when you're thinking about dropping the money. But it is expensive, $895 US where I live. It's a huge investment, and it's not to take lightly. At the time of this video, Mudbox, I believe, is about roughly around $10 a month. Blender is obviously free. I don't know about 3D Code, where that's at right now. Overall, my thoughts are I'm starting to get used to it, and I'm starting to enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to doing some more videos like this. This was just sort of a quick speed sculpt, and I think this is sped up about 500%. It took me about 2 hours. I just started messing around with the sphere, and this thing's starting to look like a trash can face or something like that. But, I think you can really learn a lot in sculpting by just throwing something in there and just having fun with it, and not treating every single thing you do like a portfolio piece, but just, hey, let's just have some fun and let's just learn. As you can see now, I'm just kind of fixing up what I was working on. It wasn't working, so I just sort of said, I'm just gonna chew that up. Don't be afraid to do that every now and then. If it's not working, chew it up. Alright everybody, thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments if you have any thoughts about ZBrush, where you're at with it right now. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Alright, hello everyone. This is going to be another speed sculpt video today in ZBrush. With this one, the primary purpose was that I wanted to make sure that there were two distinct materials in the final result. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically just start with the sphere, start messing around with some things, and I'm going to basically make this little robot guy here with arms that are one material and the center of the body is another. Now at first the beginning was really, I was just messing around with different ways to bring out some extremities. You see I'm just sort of moving things around, appending in some spheres and some cylinders. I wanted to do it without, wanted to see if I can do this without any other methods like Z-spheres or just moving and masking and moving and that sort of thing. And you'll see me here in a minute moving these arm things over here to the left and then mirroring over after merging things down. But yeah, no real rhyme or reason to the end result here. I'm not trying to make a portfolio piece, but just giving myself an exercise. I'm just trying to learn ZBrush more efficiently and more fluidly. I'm still relatively new to the program, having tinkered around with it over the years, but only a few months ago actually getting really serious about it. So now what you'll see me do here is eventually I'm going to start to make the arms into a bit of a kind of a wood texture, kind of a tree bark look, and leave the center as sort of a hard surface sci-fi type of a thing. And I'm starting off here with clay tubes as the primary brush. I'm just sort of giving it a bit of a wood or chewed up cardboard look, kind of a tree bark. And again, at first I'm just trying to get rid of that primitive look. I did just make a bunch of boxes and spheres and some torus rings and just throw them together for no apparent reason. Give myself a little bit of a shape. I was doing a number of exercises previously where I just used a sphere, and the end result obviously looked like I had just a sphere, so I just wanted to do something different this time. You'll see me here finally starting to use the clay tubes to just sort of chip away at it, and then sometimes I'm adding and sometimes I'm holding down to subtract. And I'm not worried too much about anything other than just giving it that textured look. Just want it to look different than everything else. Just want it to have that chewed up texture to it. I want to make sure, even though, in real life I'm not sure why this little robot looking dude would be made out of tree bark with these arms, but again, it's just an exercise. I'm just going through with these clay tubes, just trying to give this idea. And now you'll see me use this /3 brush to sort of design some shapes into the hard surface section here in the middle. And you'll see me go over with the Damien Standard as well and experimenting a little bit with the differences between those two brushes. They're both good for this job, the Damien Standard and the /3, to sort of cut in hard lines like this. And then you'll see me go over with the pinch brush as well to sort of clean these things up. Drawing on a few shapes here and just trying to, if it doesn't get right the first time, just Control Z it and try again. My primary concern, I think, was just, what am I getting out of this exercise? I know this isn't a portfolio piece, but I'm here to learn and I'm here to just stretch myself out. So it doesn't really matter if this is the best shape design. It doesn't matter if this is a cool character that I'm designing. I'm not worried about anything like that. I'm just trying to get the idea of the workflow down so that I can have that sort of in my arsenal, my bag of tricks, that if I wanted to sculpt something that had this kind of hard surface idea, I can do that. If I wanted to sculpt something with kind of a tree bark like look to it, then I can do that as well. But more than anything, I just wanted to be able to look at it and to sense like, okay, the materials are clearly defined. There's two distinct types of surfaces here. And as I continue to sort of clay tube away on the arms and then just clean up things in here in the middle, piece by piece, I just sort of chip away at the distinction. Here we're coming back into the arms with more clay tubes, and it has a square alpha to it, and as I apply it, you're getting a bit of a square look to it, and that's a good thing. Like, I want those brush shapes to come across, and as you add on and add on and add on, it starts to build up and look more like a texture and less like somebody just took square shapes and started cutting into it. As you continue to move along and move along, you'll start to see that it starts to look a little bit less like a perfect CG shape. I just want it to look like it has something a little more organic to it, whereas the center will look a lot more clean. This will look a lot dirtier. You know, sometimes I think it looks like wood, sometimes I think it looks like the inside of cardboard. Now here, using the mask, at first I'm trying to I considered doing some sort of wood, like here in this section, but I ended up scrapping it later on. Ended up just going ahead with a cleaner hard surface look here later on. Ended up scrapping over this. Well, you'll see me using the mask, and in the last video I did, I had more brushes in the toolbar up top, and I ended up, as you can see here, I'm still kind of adjusting my custom interface. In fact, I have enabled customize in the bottom. That's how much I've been customizing my interface lately. I just keep working on it. Eventually I'm like, I'm just going to put the enable customize button in the interface. But yeah, I cut out some of those brushes. I realized I don't need a mask, because if you hold control, you get the mask, and then you have all the different mask brushes in that mask. All you have to do is just go over to the stroke and just change your stroke. Like if you change it from freehand to rectangle, you've got the mask rectangle, and so on and so forth. And if you change it, if you turn the square on, then you have a perfect square mask, and all the same rules apply to like the clip brush, the slice, the trim, the knife. Really, you only need one of those, and you just click on one button, and then as long as you're holding control and shift, you just go over to the stroke and just change the stroke, and you have all that functionality there. And now this is the point where I start to clean this up a little bit, and I'm trying to, again, make it look like it has that hard surface, maybe sci-fi-ish look to it, and I'm trying to like sort of bevel and bump out the sides. I'm starting to use the trim dynamic brush, and I'm starting to use, I started using age polish as well. Now the trim smooth border brush, which I use later on, if you don't know, a brush that is not in the original default brushes, you have to go into the light box and activate it there. And there is a way to place it on your hard drive in the correct folder so that it's in your startup brushes. So now every time I turn in ZBrush, I have the trim smooth border already ready to go. I have it in my custom interface. I can just click on it there. Also be careful when you use the trim smooth border that you don't hold shift when you use it, otherwise it will read it as a smooth brush. I'm using it as a regular brush, not a smooth brush. As you see, I'm using the H polish here to just give it that hard chipped look, which is one of the things, again, I'm just trying to use different brushes on the two different surfaces to make them look different. I'm not using clay tubes. But for the most part, I'm using some flatten, I'm using some H polish, just trying to get this a lot more hard edge looking. And as I went in with the Damien Standard and the /3 to create these shapes, some of them, you know, it's not going to turn out perfect right away, and just go in and start fixing it again. Go in and tweak it, and a lot of it is just getting used to the brushes. I'm still getting used to the way they react. You know, your earliest sculpts, if you're new to sculpting, it's not gonna look perfect, and it's okay. Just allow yourself to learn, allow yourself to just go over it again and again and again. And just like with polymodeling, you know, when you're polymodeling you're using subdivisions for the first time, it's like, whoa, you realize, okay, if I move these edge loops together, then all of a sudden it starts to form a nice hard edge, and you move those edge loops away, and then all of a sudden it starts to make a much wider and smoother edge, and you just learn by doing. Sculpting is the same way. You learn how these brushes work, you learn what works and what doesn't, and you just have to experiment, and you have to allow yourself to fail in a good way. And by that I mean like allowing yourself to fail fast and to fail often, to just get to the point where, like, I tried it, it didn't work, I tried that, it didn't work, and by a process of elimination, you'll just get used to the way the tools work, you'll get used to the workflow, and eventually you'll just start to get the hang of it. You'll see me going over and drawing those hard lines in, and then using the pinch brush to sort of refine that hole that I created. Using clay buildup and a bunch of other tools, sometimes using the Form Soft actually, to just do some buildups, and again go over it with the H polish and just kind of give it that distinct look, give it a nice beveled edge to it. And here I'm just messing around with some shape design. Like, did I have to put the shape on there? No, but I wanted another excuse to just show how this shape in the middle, the body area, looked different than the arms, just to really hammer in that idea, so that when I was done with this, that if it was a successful experiment and a successful exercise, I was going to be able to clearly look and see that this section in the middle looked like it was made out of a very different surface than the arms. See, I went over it with a Form Soft that time and then hard polished afterwards. And here you see I'm going back with a trim smooth border. After I used a lot of clay tubes earlier, I'm going to go over and add more variation with the trim smooth border, and I'm just going to kind of sort of hack away at it, so that they're, the trim smooth border, I'm kind of giving bigger shapes here, whereas with the clay tubes I was giving smaller, more microsurface shapes. I just kind of textured the whole thing. And now it's looking a little bit more distinctively like tree bark now that I'm doing this. Whereas before I just kind of defined it as a more organic surface. Now I'm trying to make it look a little bit more specifically like tree bark, to show that it's made out of something very different than the clean, hard surface in the middle. Just going back in here with some more Form Soft, and just trying to, again, at this point I'm just experimenting with shapes, trying to see, okay, can I add some more variation to this? I didn't want to just have it look the exact same way all around. And again, I'm just experimenting, seeing what works, what doesn't. I want some of the areas to have a more refined, like sharper edge, and I want some areas to have more of a softer, smoother edge. You see there I use the select rectangle to hide the arms away, so that it's just easier to work with what I was seeing. I didn't like how it didn't look like that tree material was going all the way up to the end of the arm, and I just wanted to make sure that I extended it out a little bit further under those little ring-like shoulder pad things. Now at this point I just wanted to further refine with the H polish. The last thing I did when I looked at it when I was done, I definitely felt that it was a little too lumpy, like I didn't go in with the H polish enough and really define that this was supposed to look smoother and more hard surface. So I just wanted to make sure that with this one, that I took it just a little bit of a step further. And it's giving it a bit of a stylized look, and I'm okay with that here. I'm not really worried about how realistic or stylized it is, more than anything just so that it clearly looks like it has more of a defined surface. Just going back in here, I think I just wanted to add a little bit more shape definition here again to really hammer in, because I'm recognizing that one thing that's making this look kind of sci-fi is just having more of these more man-made shapes into it, whereas with the bark, everything is kind of chaotic looking. But if this was actually made by human hands, by people who actually made this out of some sort of man-made material, then it would have some more well-defined shapes to it. So the more curves or whatever and extrusions I can make, the better it's going to look. Alright, this is the end result. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know in the comments what you think. If you learned anything from this, I'd appreciate that. I know this is, again, it's not about the end result, and I'm not trying to make a great portfolio piece here. The point is just do some exercises and just learn from it and just see what comes up with it. Your career is a marathon, it's not a sprint. You just got to make sure that you're learning every step of the way. Not everything you have to do has to be the most polished piece on the planet. Just make sure that you got something out of it and you came out a better artist in the end. All right, everybody, thanks for watching so much, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one.